Hello and welcome back to the Beyond the Apex podcast. Today we're in Monaco for the Monaco Grand Prix, and finally Charles Leclerc won his own Grand Prix.
I've got no words really.
It was so nice because obviously he's had this curse for so long over him, stretching back to F2.
Yeah.
And finally he was able to, it felt like it had such a weight on his shoulders, and he's finally got rid of it, and thank the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I really just think that's like the peak for him. You know?
It really was.
It's like winning his home race. He's had such bad luck, like you said, from previous years and previous series, and to see him on the
with his own Monaco anthem behind him, he just looked so proud, and Prince Albert was proud as well, because obviously Monaco's so small. Charles is good mates with Prince Albert, and I mean Prince Albert was on there spraying the champagne at him. It was just so unlike him, and you could tell that he was just so proud.
Absolutely, and like we said last podcast, F1 is back.
F1 is so back, and I mean last week we were kind of saying it tongue in cheek because we were like, is it back? Is it back? It's so back.
It's so
I mean, let's move on to Red Bull.
Yeah.
Such a poor weekend for them. Such a poor weekend. I mean, there was no quali pace for Max. He was complaining about the car a lot. And he got qualified P6 and ended P6, obviously.
But you see, this is the thing, right? With Monaco, if you don't qualify good enough,
you're screwed.
You're screwed.
Yeah.
Because obviously, there's just not really much chance for overtaking.
Absolutely not. And I mean, this was the first race in F1 history where the top 10 didn't change from qualifying to the race.
Really?
Yeah. First race ever in F1 history. And I mean, that's telling of Monaco, I think.
That is telling, isn't it? I mean, the difference though, like with Formula E,
oh my god, yeah, like
there's
million overtakes.
119 overtakes or something, and it's like this one, none.
No,
mental.
Literally none.
Mental.
And I mean, obviously it wasn't helped by the big crash by Checo, because obviously that pulled out the red flag.
Yeah.
Glad he's okay, but
exactly.
It's going to be huge for Red Bull's kind of development budget, because it's a £3 million crash, and that was a quarter of their development budget this year. So I'm not going to lie, thank you Checo, because the end of this season is going to be really good.
It is, isn't it? I mean, yeah, like we said, we're glad he's okay, but blimey, that was not a nice crash.
It was not nice to witness, and I mean, it kind of, we saw the red flag come out, and we were kind of confused, and then it just cut to Checo with no wheels on his car, and we were like,
just the chassis.
Just the chassis, and we were like, firstly, that says loads for the safety cell in F1, because he was completely unharmed. It was not impacted at all, and that was a big crash into the barrier. I mean, obviously we got news about the photographer who was injured. Luckily he's okay, but I mean, they were all there. That's the corner where they all take photos, and I mean, the videos from there were really scary.
Yeah, they were terrifying. And did you see them when the marshals were getting pictures by them?
Oh yeah, that's hilarious. I mean, that's probably why the red flag was so long.
Yeah,
but I mean, you can't blame them because it was a sick photo.
Yeah, it was to be fair.
But yeah, I mean, with Max getting P6, obviously the difference in the Drivers' Championship is now 31 points, which is the closest it's been for years. Even in the 2021 year, it's closer than it's ever been. And I mean, who could have predicted this at the start of the season? No one could have predicted this.
No.
And in the Constructors, I think it's only about 20 points now as well. But, which confuses me, for the point that there have been rumours that Checo signed a 1-year contract extension.
That's interesting.
Which doesn't make sense to me, because with the cars converging, we've seen that Checo just clearly hasn't been qualifying that well. Yeah. And yet they would re-sign him. It doesn't make that much sense to me.
No, absolutely.
So
I don't know. I was just going to say, obviously, with Lewis going to Ferrari next year, he's going to hope to be in the title battle.
100%. And I mean, it's just going to push out Red Bull.
Yeah, I think so. That's a strange one, isn't it?
It doesn't make sense to me, because with all the teams converging, and especially next year, I think it's genuinely going to be a three-way team battle for the championship.
Yeah.
They're just going to be out of the Constructors, because they've proven time and time again that Checo's just not on the pace of Max, and when the margins are so small at the top, he can't perform. Yeah,
it's true, isn't it? I mean, we've said it the whole time. It's not the driver pairing that Red Bull would want.
Absolutely.
The number 2 driver is not really.
It's not there. I mean, you look at McLaren with Lando and Piastri. Unbelievable driver pairing. You look at Ferrari next year with Leclerc and Hamilton. Unbelievable driver pairing. I mean, even Mercedes, because obviously we've got... let's move on to Mercedes. So obviously they've had upgrades this race, and they clearly worked with George. But there has been a lot of rumours that Kimi Antonelli has signed the contract for 2025, which would make it very interesting, because obviously this is an 18-year-old kid stepping into what could be one of the quickest cars on the grid. It's going to be very interesting.
It is.
And I mean, look, it was a semi-decent result for them. I mean, it's been better than past weekends. However, it's still not what they
No, it's still not what they want, and I think they are at the lower end of that battle. You know, between most of them. But yeah, I mean that's going to be so interesting with Kimi.
100%, and obviously he hasn't been performing that well in F2 this year. That's mainly because Prema have just been completely off the boil, and I think the F1 teams are realising this because obviously Ollie Behrman is clearly one of the best drivers on the grid, and he isn't performing F2. But the teams are more basing who they sign on F1 tests. That's the reason it's come out for the Kimi Antonelli choice, because apparently he was quicker than Mick Schumacher in the test, in the Silverstone test, and he was quicker than Fred Vesti as well.
Wow.
This kid is 18. He is the real deal, and Toto has said time and time again he had a chance to sign Max Verstappen in 2017, I believe. He had that chance and he didn't take it, and apparently he just doesn't want to miss out on this chance again. Because Kimi Antonelli is 100% a champion of the future. There is no doubt about that. In any of the F1 teams' mind, any team would take him, and he just wants to get in that car. And do you know what? I full-heartedly agree with Jose.
I agree too. I think it would be stupid to not take up that opportunity.
100%. Yeah, and I mean obviously there have been rumours that Mercedes have the quickest power unit for 2026. Which makes it really interesting because maybe they've nailed the 2026 regs. They're giving Kimi Antonelli a 1 year kind of grace period in the car. Look, we're not even going to look at your results, just get used to the car, get used to Formula 1. Then 2026, smack down, straight away into the championship fight. I think it's a perfect plan. That's what I've been saying from the start of the year, but I think it's going to work.
No, I think so, and I really do think we'll see that,
100%.
Yeah.
But moving on to Ferrari, Charles Leclerc obviously finally wins his home Grand Prix.
Take a bow.
His quali pace was unbelievable.
Yep.
I think it was about 1.7 tenths, which is big in Monaco.
Yep.
And Sainz also had a good weekend, although he did get lucky on the red flag rules.
Yeah.
Obviously, the rules are very complex, and I was debating this with my parents when I was watching it. The rules are is that all the cars have to pass through the first sector before then it's done on that kind of order. And we were wondering, we were like, why are they not doing it on the order that they come into the pits? Because obviously everyone got through the first sector. However, Zhou got caught behind the Hasses and the Red Bulls and was therefore 20 seconds behind them and didn't go through the first sector, and Sainz got very lucky. Otherwise it would have been Lando on the podium, double McLaren podium, unfortunately. But I would say the championship battle is on.
Yeah, no, I would say too, and obviously we've said it before, we'll say it again, it's such a strong driver pairing, I just think it's going to be insane. Ferrari are just on another level at the moment.
I really do think everyone's going to kind of go to Ferrari as a kind of we really want you to win, and they can. I really believe under Fred's leadership, the team has looked so much more positive and so much more, do you know what, this team could actually win now. And also with Charles Leclerc, he's got a new race engineer, Brian someone, but he just seems a lot more content on the radio now. It's a lot more sports with Charles, and Charles seems to love it and Brian as well. So everything's kind of coming together for this kind of 2025 Lewis and Charles title fight. Oh, I can't wait.
No, it's gonna be something else. I mean, seeing them both in red.
Oh my god. I mean, Lewis's first win for Ferrari is going to be unbelievable. I mean, obviously, we haven't listened to the British National Anthem in a long time, apart from Lando, obviously. And to hear the British National Anthem, which for me is one of my favourites, I'll always sing it loud and sing it proud, but hearing that before the Italian National Anthem, which is always sung with pride of the Ferrari engineers, it's just going to be perfect.
It's going to just be a whole other level of madness, really, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it really is. But I mean, moving on to McLaren, a very, very decent result. Obviously, Oscar, brilliant qualifying, where you need to be qualifying great, got in the front row and ended with his first Monaco podium. Lando had a solid race in P4, couldn't really overtake, but you can't blame him.
No, absolutely, and I think the team are going to not go away from that weekend, thinking, oh God, it was an awful weekend. That was exactly where they want to be.
Exactly where they want to be. And what I did find funny was they always kind of have a debrief in the MTC, which I'm very much looking forward to on my weekend when I'm working there. I do have a work experience placement coming up very soon, so I'll be at one of those debriefs, which I'm very excited for. But did you see the photo of all of them in the yellow areas and centre? And it is literally the minions we're going to still move.
It's literally like 50,000 minions. It's so funny.
And it's always Randy Singh, their strategy engineer, who always posts it, and he clearly is just leaning into the meme and loves it.
Yeah, it is quite funny. I do love McLaren.
I love McLaren. I mean, everyone knows. Everyone knows they're my favourite team on the grid, but they just do everything so well.
it.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah. But moving on to Aston Martin now, before we take a break, it was a very, very poor result for the team.
Yeah,
it really was. And I mean, they were slower than they were in 2023.
I mean, that says a lot, doesn't it? That's very telling.
Very, very telling. And I mean, obviously, Alonso had problems in qualifying. Stroll out qualified him, which says a lot.
That says a lot, doesn't it?
But yeah, no points on the no points.
That's the weekend, blimey. They're going to walk away from that thinking we need to up our game.
Yeah, and I think their heads are going to be low as well.
Yes, yeah, I agree. And it's not what they need, especially with teams like McLaren and Ferrari performing so well. It just makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense, and I think their championship fight this year was definitely with Mercedes. We came into this season, we were like, do you know what, the Ferraris and the McLarens are going to be ahead, but their fight is with Mercedes. And at the moment, they're nowhere. The upgrades clearly haven't worked, and they have zero pace in the car, and they don't know why, which is the main problem. That's the problem that Merck had last year. It's the problem that all the teams have kind of gotten over. And Aston Martin just seems to be struggling.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. But we'll take a break and we'll come back to Alpine. Okay, right, let's get into it. Alpine.
Just crazy. I mean, it was explosions the whole race, and Ocon. We need to talk about the Ocon incident because Ocon absolutely sent it on the first lap, sending his car into the air on his teammate, which is just not something you do.
No.
And I mean, it nearly cost Gasly points because obviously Gasly finished in the points for his first points of the season. But Bruno Faman was absolutely seething about the incident, and you can see why.
Yeah, absolutely. You just don't do that, especially on a track like Monaco, when you're both performing well. You're not going to hinder that. You know, it's going to take them both out. We've seen it before. Yeah. You know, but to be fair, we've always said this: the driver pairing is just.
It's just too fiery. Yeah, and I really do think that this is the last year of this partnership because Ocon's going to go somewhere, and I think Gasly's going to do the same. And I mean, there was rumours that Bruno Faman was actually going to bench Ocon for Canada. However, those rumours have been dispelled by Ocon himself on his Instagram. But I wouldn't kind of put it past him because you don't do it. And especially if there'd been no contact, then fair enough. It would have just been on the edge. People would have talked about it, but it's fine. But he fully sent it and nearly broke Gasly's suspension. It's just bonkers to me.
It makes no sense, and I think the team are going to be really disappointed in all of that.
Yeah,
it's just not.
It's just not what they need at the moment, especially when they're so desperate for every single point. They cannot be dealing with this kind of petty rivalry between Gasly and Ocon. Yeah. They can't be dealing with it, and I mean they need to get it sorted.
They do. They really do. We'll move on to Williams. Obviously,
it's a good weekend. Points. Albon's first points of the week. First points of the season. Obviously, if you're going to qualify well, you do it in Monaco, and they very much kind of bedded on that. And they had a good qualifying. Albon in P9, and then he came home P9. And do you know what? Really good result for the team.
Yeah, good. But not for Sargent though.
Not for Sargent. I mean, he was absolutely nowhere, and it just sends the rumour mill crazy. I mean. There's been rumours this weekend that Sainz is in advanced talks with Williams. There's rumours that Bottas in advanced talks with Williams. No rumours that Sargent has been in talks. No. There's been nothing. And it's kind of, I really do think this is his last season in Formula 1. And instead of putting so much pressure on himself to kind of get the seat, because that's kind of a decision that's out of his hands, he just needs to calm down and enjoy himself. Yeah. Because I think that's actually how he's going to get the best results out of himself.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of pressure going on, behind the scenes that we don't see. So, I mean, it's going to be telling, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I mean, moving on to Racing Bulls, another underdog that's performing so well. Yuki Tsunoda, just take another bow because he has been a clear team leader for that team this year. Yeah. And a P8 in Monaco.
Unbelievable.
It's just unbelievable. Yeah. And I mean, Ricciardo was P12. He managed to get through to Q2. But just nowhere in comparison to Tsunoda again.
No, Tsunoda's really popped off this season.
He really has. And I mean, there was always the rumours that not rumours, but kind of the discussions that when Ricciardo came to the team this year, he would have to be the team leader. Tsunoda would have to kind of drop back and then he would lose his seat. However, Tsunoda has just kind of gone, screw that, I'm going to go well. Yeah. And he's just, I saw his kind of streak of points that he's had recently. And it's just unbelievable. In a Racing Bull, which, let's be real here, is probably the 6th quickest car on the week, 6th or 7th quickest car on the grid. Yeah. And he's just dragging it to points every single race. And you just can't ignore it at this point.
You really can't. I mean, it's really good racing for him,
Oh, it's just, it's so good. But going on to somewhere where there isn't any good performance at all is Sauber. I mean,
there's nothing to say because there's nothing going on there.
There's nothing to say.
They may as well have just not kind of done into the race.
They might as well have just left it.
Yeah.
I mean, and it confuses me because we have teams like Sauber, which obviously are just in a kind of transitional phase where they're going to Audi in 2026. But the reason I'm going to go on to Andretti here because time and time again, you get referred to the fact that the reason that Andretti were blocked from Formula One is that they wouldn't provide enough for the sport and that they wouldn't be competitive enough. And that's what infuriates me, is because Sauber clearly are nowhere on the pace. They are not putting the funding into development anymore. And it would so much be better to have Andretti on the grid. And I mean, Andretti made some big signings recently, obviously signing Pat Simmons from the FIA themselves. Pat was very influential in the design of these 2022 cars. And I think that's very telling. And I mean, if you put in with enough brunt, Andretti are going to get in eventually. It's just whether they get in buying a team or whether they get in with their actual own team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be interesting, obviously, going from 2025 onwards to see if actually that bid does, is successful.
And I think every F1 fan wants to see it because it'd be so great to see another team on the grid. And I mean, this is where kind of other series like Formula E thrive because I mean, there's been rumours this year, this week, that Ferrari are looking at joining Formula E.
Yes.
And Formula E are actually excited to bring them in. Yeah. That's what F1 need to do. They need to be excited to bring new kind of life into the sport.
Otherwise it's just closed off.
It's so
like
closed off.
No one can access it.
Exactly. And it's bad because bearing in mind people are saying that F1 is kind of dying. I mean, the championship battle is helping kind of bring that up again. But some new life with Andretti, it brings so many more American fans into the sport, obviously with Andretti being huge in IndyCar. Yeah. But it's just what the sport needs, I think.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And we'll go on to Haas finally.
Yes, so obviously they got very, very unlucky getting disqualified by qualifying, in qualifying with the same problem that Lewis had in Brazil 2021. But it was valid, they were breaking the rules. But the big incident.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's not going to do their budgets very well, and they're going to come out this weekend very, very disappointed, I think.
Yeah, I think as well for Haas, I mean, we say it quite a lot. Obviously, they're not the team that's got the most money or the most development funding or anything like that.
They've got nothing. I mean, they are the true underdog, and they've been doing well this season, but this is not what they need.
No, this is the biggest setback I think they could ever have.
Absolutely.
Especially we're not even halfway through the season.
No, and they've already had this much because obviously they were going so well with their development, and obviously the crash budget is in the development budget, and to have a detriment like that is going to be huge, I think.
Absolutely, and I really doubt that we're going to see them performing quite well.
I agree because everyone else, like the Racing Bulls and the Alpines, are going to be rising, and they're just simply not going to be able to develop because of this hindrance. Because that was easily, I think, another £3-4 million crash, which they cannot afford.
It. No.
So it's I mean, it's going to be poor for the rest of the season, but hopefully they can bring it back.
Absolutely.
So that was it. That was the podcast for Monaco. On to Canada next week, which I again am very excited for. So thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.